So today our discussion or debate theme is activism, and I really got shocked when I've seen the change from one film to another, and I wanted to complain to the programmers, but they are us, so. But there's of course a reason why we have done this, and so I hope at the end of the debate it will be clear, or perhaps it won't be clear. Perhaps it's even better if it's not clear. Yeah. So activism. Natalie, you have encountered Maki Berchage, who's actually the co-director of the film. Yes, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about it. And I would like to ask you if for you it's how you met, if it's a part of your activist attitude as a filmmaker, if you would go to say so far to say this.
Oh yeah.
It's working.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. First, I just want to say that it is the first time. Sorry for my English, because everyone's talk English like a natural thing, but it's not. So I will try to do my best. Okay. So just it is the first time that I present the film without Maki. So for me, it's like a part of myself or ourselves, which is lacking, and it is very important for me as part of this activism to be together. We made the film together, and to be together to present it. I don't want any expert to talk instead of Maki, and I'm not the one. We tried. Our film was an attempt with this meeting, because we met in a political struggle, and then the film was made 6 months or more than that. It was hardly 1 year and a half, and we started the process of the film before, but it was made in a sort of loneliness, because it was after the fight, and when you find yourself alone after having been a collective, either in a revolution, either in a political struggle. So Maki is missing, because he's not there, but I will try my best.
Okay, and you met at a refugee camp, that's it?
Yes.
And your motivation was, in the beginning, was there to make a film about the
Not at all, not at all, because my process is not, it's the second film. I'm very young director, in the sense that it's only the second film, and I'm not sure I'm a filmmaker, in the sense that it's a need to make fabricate, to build something with someone at a certain point, and that's this thing. It could be a play theater, a piece of I don't know, of writing or whatever, but it is a need that what you meet in the life has to find a form, and that form, it was that film with Maki. It was, as I say, an attempt, with good things, with bad things, with everything. So we met in a camp. Actually, there were many Tunisian young men. There were no women at all. At Porte de la Villette in Paris, about 500 of them, just living there, outside, waiting for just, they had reached their dream in a way, and they were treated as dogs, just living outside without nothing, under the rain, under the cold, and with a great, still sometimes a great joy that I even couldn't understand. And we had that place just near this camp, where it was called Coordination des intermittents et précaires. I don't know if you heard about that struggle. It was about precarious workers in the field of theater, cinema, but also all the unemployed people. I could explain that, but we had that place, that big building, for hardly 7 years. We were staying there, 10 years, yeah. And so we were going to be evicted by the city of Paris, and so we opened the door. I mean, some of the collectives, and we think Nicola and I were the first in the morning, where in the evening, some people opened the door, and there were 80 or 100 of them sleeping there. And in the morning we came, we bought some croissants. There was no French people around, and we were there with them, and we started being together. And I don't know, it was very difficult and complicated to think what to do and what to try and whatever, but that was our meeting point.
Thank you. So it's for you. Would you say that in doing this kind of video essays and also to choose the subject of transformers, that would be this would be an act of activism?
Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable with that word, because I feel like there are people who are doing activism that, you know, I think this work of mine can't compare to. I mean, if it has any sort of resemblance at all, it would, you know, in terms of activism, I think of it in terms of just being a more active viewer. When you look at a film, to actually be actively questioning and interrogating how it's put together, you know, and not just in terms of film style or film form, but also ideology and the economics of film, and how what you see on screen actually connects to a physical reality. I mean, it's amazing that your work is so engaged with the physical reality of, you know, of Maki. And you know, my initial project was to actually be in physical locations and to film this production that was happening in Chicago. But as you see, you know, the experience I had, I would just get kicked out very quickly, or just not be able to see very much. But eventually what happened was I noticed that there were all these other people filming, and then I noticed that they were putting their videos on YouTube. And so it was a strange thing, because I originally just wanted to get away from computers and movie screens and to just be in physical spaces, to regain a physical space. I'm a film critic, so I used to spend like 12 to 15 hours a day in front of a screen of some kind. And I just wanted to get away from that and to engage with a physical sense of reality. But this project led me back to screens, and this entire film takes place on a screen. So maybe this is just a kind of inevitable reality that we are living in now. So then the question becomes, how do we participate as these kind of virtual citizens? How can we access this virtual environment, this virtual landscape, and really investigate it and bring some kind of understanding out of it.
Yeah, sorry, the cable was kind of annoying. Yeah, we have seen two very different films, and I'm a big fan of the combination because it sparks so many thoughts. I think both of you, or all of you, come from different backgrounds. Natalie, you are coming more from an activist background, like more political background, while Kevin comes more from a, I would say, academic, critical background, theoretical background, and at some point you both chose to create something that goes beyond the mere subject. You chose to create works of art, and I think they are both outstanding in their different ways. So I was wondering, in all of your cases, what drove you to move a little further, like to create something out of yourself and involve the thoughts you had in a work of art, like we saw them.
Okay, I can talk about that. Yeah, again, as a film critic, I was just really getting exhausted from this sort of daily routine of, okay, you as a professional film critic, you're kind of delivered these films that you're supposed to care about and you're supposed to write about and you're supposed to deliver an opinion about, and it really becomes a kind of assembly line process of every week, here are the movies that you're supposed to care about, and now you go make other people care about them too. And I was just getting kind of exhausted with this process and wondering if there's more that a film critic can do to kind of disrupt or investigate the films that are kind of delivered to you as a final product. So in this instance, here's a film that's not finished yet, but there's all these video kind of pieces, these fragments of this film that's not yet finished and not yet delivered. And is there a way that you can actually take those pieces and investigate this production, and also, Hollywood as this sort of global apparatus, this global factory that's, using different types of strategies, from tax incentives for productions to negotiations with the Chinese film industry to just using people's phones to market and produce itself. So it's a way of kind of trying to reposition the film critic's role in this assembly line. And so I'm very honored to be part of this initial Critics Week. The manifesto that you published at the Oberhausen Film Festival last spring really speaks to everything that I'm trying to pursue with this work.
So this is film criticism through images, but you also introduced some words, so sentences that you have found in the descriptions of the videos. So is it like to speak with other words, with other people who has perhaps with whom you share the experience of this kind of film production, or what would you say? What is the role of the foreign words within your work?
The foreign words. So you mean the other videos, or
the description of the videos, and you marked them some sentences.
I'm sorry.
So it's like a very objective approach to your subject. You're using other words, so you're not like normally film critics are speaking about a film. So they are inventing phrases and theses and yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that was kind of a personal challenge to myself. I've made these online video essays for several years, and it usually involves me speaking. So it's really like a narrated video commentary with some video. And I really just wanted to see if it was possible to use images to talk about images. And this is something that Harun Farokhi was very, very influential and very eloquent in his ability to just use images, use montage to stimulate a kind of analytical thought or an analytical insight. So, yeah.
In Farokhi, there is also a commentary about the images you are seeing, so it's different.
That's true. But he's done both, and yeah, but it's yeah.
Yes, sometimes with a commentary, which is very important and helps you, because I was lost in your film because I'm not used to that rapidity and to that. It's just like I'm wondering what's happening.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's definitely
basic spectator.
Right. I guess it's a question of the thesis and what is the investigation. I mean, it was definitely this process where I didn't know where I would end up just by investigating, but just sort of trusting these images to speak, and to lead me on the way, and to kind of trust that I can rely on these different voices. I mean, there are so many different voices from different people, and to kind of let them have a turn to speak and to see if there's a collective kind of voice or insight that can emerge from that. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, but I think it's something to the power of cinema to kind of let images and these kind of moments speak with as little sort of didactic, like I really want to say what I want to think, but to really trust the images to speak for themselves, it's a challenge.
Nicolas, Brûle la Mer, you shot Brûle la Mer, and this film was made in a very different way than Kevin's film was made, because it was shot on 16 and 8mm film. It's a very different way of working and doing something, because you have to think about it very carefully before you do it. How would you say... I'm sorry.
Oops.
I'm very sorry. I did not... Yeah. You know what I mean, right? It's a very different style of working, because you cannot change things afterwards that easily. Yeah. We were talking about comments in the form of images. Would you consider your pictures as commenting in a way?
No. Commenting? I don't think so. It's. I think we made that film basically just Nathalie, Maki, and me. Just the three of us in one room where he lives near Paris, and then we went with him in Tunisia and his family. It was very hard to find the proper spot between something intimate, the relationship we have with Maki, as he became very close to us over time and through that struggle, and then later in the months that followed, and making a film, which was an experience that we had, but he hadn't. He had never made a film, of course, and even or being in a film also, because he also chose to have the story. He really wanted to write the story to make sure that what he would say in the film was had been through a written form before it was said, from it went from there. It went from trying the proper building with them too, the proper images, but I wouldn't say it was commenting.
But actually, I've thought when I've seen your film, so with the film camera, so Super 8 and 60mm, for us, when we had done our selection of the program in whole, it was a very important point for the decision to put it in the program, because we all think that it's so important to shoot on film material nowadays with the digital revolution, if we would say like this or not, is. And we were really sad that we couldn't project any film material here in the cinema. So the Hackische Höfe, we are so glad to be here, but last year they had totally changed their technique, and now it's totally impossible to project any film material. And it's really, I think it's just like a scandal, and we were so happy to get your filmic work in our program. And I've thought this might be our political comment also on this kind of development in now in the film industry and the cinema industry, that you still are shooting on film material.
Well, indeed, I think it's a struggle. It might be a minor struggle, or I don't know, in the whole world taken as a whole, maybe. But there is an ongoing struggle to be able to continue shoot films on film for filmmakers that want to do that. And I don't see why you wouldn't be able to pick the material that you desire to make a work of art. I don't see any reason why any other fields of art where the material that you pick is, dictated by somebody else. Of course, with the shift to digital, which I certainly wouldn't call a revolution, the industry has discarded and has stopped using film material, and well, there has been network of filmmakers since 20 years back, or you could even trace it farther, that has been picking up equipment on sidewalks outside film labs, and that have started giving it back to filmmakers in a way, organizing film labs and that are operated by filmmakers, and together with a group of people in Paris, we run one, but there's one here in Berlin. There's a number in the whole world, and yeah, that's one thing we try to do, and I think it's important that critique and programmers have attention for that, and that they make the effort to show it on film when it is still possible, and that it is written in the programs when it is filmed, so that the audience knows that it is filmed and that they're going to watch. Because now it's not written everywhere, it's not written anywhere usually, and things like that can help.
See, I find this totally fascinating, because I feel like these two projects of ours, are kind of addressing the same kind of problem or crisis, which is how do you give the power of filmmaking back to people who are at risk of losing it just through the dominant practice of this like big budget digital filmmaking, and my response is, well, just make the movie on your computer. That's because in theory, because now you can do that. You can literally just record a movie or in this case a documentary just on your desktop, that's to me, there's an ethos behind this in terms of there are so many images that we are drowning in these days. There's just so much to watch. So it's like we've kind of lost a sense of ecology or value. Like we just take images for granted, and it's like, why even bother making a new image when there's so many already around us? What does it mean to make a new image? How do you make a new image? And so these are the questions that I really try to explore for myself with all these images that were already available just on my computer. And so that was kind of my approach to this question of, how do you take filmmaking both in terms of economic access, but also an ethical responsibility, or just a personal kind of value system with how you make images.
And I'm not saying that making film on digital is, bad or stupid or whatever. I'm just asking for the choice. That's just.
Yeah. Also, this idea of place, I think, is super fascinating in your film, because there were some shots where I just did not know if it was Tunisia or Paris, and there was this wonderful sense of disorientation, which I think is kind of what what it's about. And then with my film as well, like when you have Detroit pretending to be China, and all these senses of dislocation, and I mean that's why there's a lot of mapping in my work, because it was really like, how do you take these floating YouTube clips that are just out there and really give them a sense of concrete physical, presence? Like, where do they belong? Where do they fit? So mapping was very important for me to do that.
When we were talking about how to create images, I'm also wondering about how people are consuming these images. You guys have very different approaches, I think. Kevin's film is out there in the web. You can watch it anytime. You could have watched it before and you shouldn't have come here, maybe. I don't know. Probably you should have come here because we had the chance to see it in cinema, which is not very common for your film, I think. And your films, I'm wondering, have they been part of political happenings where they screened only at festivals? How did people interact with these films, and how did you feel interacting with these films? Like sitting here in the cinema, sometimes, I mean, I love cinemas, but sometimes it feels a little bit like a museum and we are preaching from front. By the way, there's a mic, you can join the discussion anytime. So how have people interacted with your films? How have you interacted with the people that interacted with your films? Yeah.
Please talk. Please help me. I don't know. Does anyone want to say anything? Just wait for the mic.
It's coming this way.
Or without mic.
Maybe we don't need mics.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think I'm gonna enter this discussion now with giving you a response of how I personally received the film. I would like to come back to a point when Nicolas Ray was answering to the question of using actual film material, and you mentioned that it does have a kind of it is a statement. It also a political statement, and you mentioned some economical aspects of it. I wonder if you wouldn't want to go a bit further in discussing the politics of this kind of image, because it's not only the economy that is behind the availability of digital cameras or digital images and the production of film images, but it's also economy of looking, economy of time in the film, and how. And I think this is also a very political aspect. It's a very political aspect in giving a certain value to the image and to the duration of the exposure that the spectator has to the image, which is quite different, of course. It's aesthetically different, but it's also different knowing, or feeling actually the means and the kinds of production around these images, 60mm images.
Well, I think it's just a different practice, and certainly you can make films with just a computer, and it's also good that you can still make films without a computer at all.
Sure.
And that's sort of what we do. Okay, Natalie chose to edit on video, so she used a computer, but you could also, we have the means to also, some filmmakers that work in our lab that would edit on film and wouldn't use a computer at all. When all the fields of work in involves using a computer almost. I think it's good to be able to stay away from it also. And maybe you think it's reactionary standpoint. I wouldn't think so. I think I think it's a different practice in shooting. It's certainly this different time frame. It's this film of Maki and Nathalie is involved shooting 7 hours of material. It's quite different from most documentaries that are made now. And it just makes the act of filming different. And then when you go to the point that you process the film yourself, and or even go to the point that you would make the print, the final print that is shown when it is shown on film, it's just a different relationship to the object that you're making and that you're sharing with an audience afterwards. And I think that should be just preserved and understood. And
that's really fascinating. So you had basically a 10-to-1 shot ratio, like a 70-minute film out of 7 hours. I think that's the math. I don't know why my math is bad, but yeah, I mean, compare that to like my work. It was like 355 YouTube videos, which amounts to, I don't know, actually that was like 200 hours or something like that, plus 50 hours of my own films. So really my work was as much more about curation and kind of selecting and just sifting through the footage as much as creating it. So it was like this collapsing of the two processes of curation is capture. But I really envy what it would take, the way that you make an image, because you know that this is expensive footage. Like the cost of film and time and the effort involved is so much more than just pressing record on your digital camera and just letting it run. There's an intention that really comes into place. But I guess, I like to think that there's a lot of attention in my work too, but it's just comes in at a different stage and expresses itself in a different way.
Probably your film used 10 times more nuclear energy too, because servers in America eat up more energy than civil aviation. And if all China starts watching videos all the time, then we're gonna need to make more nuclear power plants.
Maybe we should stop making films so that no one's wasting energy watching them.
I would like to come back to the question of Dennis, because I think the way of seeing your both films is very different. I would like to discuss it, because in the point of activism, so it's what would you like? You would like to reach perhaps some audience. Where can you find it? Have you some reaction from the viewer of your video, and so on? So is the film going on beside the screening in the theater, in a festival, perhaps? Perhaps it will be shown in the theaters in Paris, in the cinemas. What's the response of the audience?
This was originally premiered on YouTube because it made sense, because it was made out of YouTube videos. So why not put it back in the place where I found the material and then just see what happens? And fortunately, the big kind of fear was that it was going to get taken down by Paramount. So kind of as a defense strategy, fortunately, I know I'm a film critic and I know a bunch of film critics, so they all kind of agreed to write about the film when it came out so that it would have this attention, and it worked. And now I kind of regret, well, maybe it should have been taken down. It would have been a much more interesting kind of story to see what happened. But in any case, and I pretty much figured, like, once it was on YouTube, that would basically be it. Like, there would be no chance to show it in film festivals, but a number of film festivals have invited it, including this one, and this one is especially meaningful because of it's chosen by film critics, so you know, my best friends. So, well, one thing that's interesting is that the people who did not respond to it were the Transformers fans, because I actually sent the link, the video, to the people who I included, and many others too, and none of them wrote back to me, and I think it's because they were afraid of it. I think it was because if they acknowledged it in some way, they would lose their special privileges as Transformers fans. Like, they wouldn't get any more free gifts from Paramount or Michael Bay. So it's this interesting kind of like, yeah, you feel like you violated a community or something like that, or they felt like this was kind of a threatening thing that they didn't want to even acknowledge. The only person related to Transformers who acknowledged it was Shia LaBeouf. He sent me this email saying, "Oh my God, this is the best fucking video essay I've ever seen." But I think it's because he's no longer with the Transformers franchise. He was let go in the last one, so maybe it was just like a kind of a catharsis.
So as for us, when we made that film, we didn't know at all what will happen with that film, actually. And it was a process, and I'm not in the circuit, or I don't know. I always said to Maki, I don't know what will happen with what. I was very afraid about that, saying, not giving hopes for anything, or it just our experience is to make the film, to try to make it, and to try to share something which seems important. And it was not only in the term of making a film, but also find money to live. So one of our goals making the film was also to have money and to live, and from him and for me too, because I don't have I live not with much money, and so we found that money, which was incredible, and we were quite happy. So for 1 year, because in France you have this intermittent system. I don't know if you heard about that, but you can declare a salary for 3 months, and then you have for 8 months benefits, unemployment benefits. So you can more than survive, you can live. So it was very important that in the process of making the film that Maki didn't have to run for work or to be in that pressure to I don't know, because there was also the problem of papers and helping him with papers. And so when we got that grant from CNC, Centre National du Cinéma, that's when we decided that he will be also we will be both author or directors of the film, I don't care. And so that when he gave his paper to the prefecture, that he was also a director of a film. And so we had 2 grants, and he was director of the film, and it was part of the many papers he had to give to have the papers, but it was part of our real game, I would say. And so we had to build with that, and we didn't know what we will be able to build as film. Sometimes we were not happy about what we did, and there are some things also in the film that we are not very happy about, but we made that. That's what we made together, and when we had the chance to go back to Tunisia, it was very important for me because I found this attachment to one country you live so deep, and and what we lived with Nicolas, the hospitality of this Arab family was also something which was very moving, and it changed your life because it's something very strong, very, very strong. So I expect that when you experience strong things, that something would be shared somehow, and somehow this film has a life, and we could cross borders with the film with Maquet. So we went to Spain, so he could cross other borders than France. He couldn't come today, it's the first time he doesn't come. And we are going to cross the ocean. Me also for the first time, we're going to America, to Canada and New York next week. And so we cross the ocean. That was part of our game.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, I'm really fascinated by the contrast in terms of how you got funding for this and just your whole concept and approach to funding. And I don't know if it's like a cultural like France and US thing, because in the US there just aren't as many opportunities to get grants or, state grants or funding of that kind. Or I don't know if it's a generational thing where, I don't know. I don't want to speak for my entire generation, but I'm personally of the belief that I cannot make a financial living as a filmmaker. I've more or less kind of assumed that that's not a possibility or a likelihood. I don't expect it. And you may have noticed that my work was a project through the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which I'm currently a student at. And the reason I'm a student is so I can get a degree to be a teacher, which is slightly better paying than a film critic. So that's basically my strategy for being able to maintain this kind of work. Like, I don't expect to make money from making films. I'll just do some other work to supplement that. And I guess that definitely, I like to think that actually frees me in terms of filmmaking. Like, I'm not doing it for a profit motive. I just want to make a good movie. It's not about box office. So, I think it's just how we kind of structure ourselves to, do the work that we feel good about.
Talking about finances, what brings you to take a risk actually to do something? I mean, creating something always involves taking a risk, taking a financial risk, taking a personal risk. For me, this is always part of activism, to stand in for an idea as well. And depending on the state you're doing it in, you might be confronted with severe consequences. In art, this has different forms, but yeah. What does it mean to take a risk for you? What drives you to take a risk?
The risk we took was not financial. I mean, it was something else. And the risk is still living with the film. I think it's. I remember Maki was saying, "Are we doing? You are coming to Tunisia for the film, or because you like me, or it's my family is important for you?" Because I was communicating also with his family through Skype, because he came to my home to speak to his family. So the risk was also the risk you engage in a friendship, something very strong, and you have to be very careful with everything, because you can't miss something in terms of relationship, because otherwise everything goes. So we have to be equal everywhere, he had to know about what money we have, what money we share. We shared everything, and so it had to be very clear, and he had to go in the process. The risk was that at one moment I would trahir, how would you say that? Betray something, or he would, or whatever. That was a risk.
Hi, I'm Christoph. I just wanted to say that I really love both films very much, but when, of course, they're so different, but there are some links, and one link I thought is interesting is that the role of authority in both films. I mean, in yours and Maki's film, the state is making the offers, the immoral offers. The state is taking things away, is imprisoning people, is erecting borders or protecting borders. And in Kevin's case, it's a company, it's Paramount, taking down videos, fining people, making immoral offers to of course it's a different dimension, and the one conflict seems to be very much 21st century, and the other one seems to be much more 20th century, just in terms of what we are used to, what kind of stories they tell. But I thought that's a very, very strange kinship, this kind of relation to authority. I wanted to ask you, Natalie, about this one shot, or maybe Nicolas, when he's basically reciting his own story as if it were a poem, and the shot is like from below, and it's almost like a monument of an existential saint or something. I wondered why you would choose such iconoclastic shot. You know, it's very 60s optimism of, you know.
Why 60s? What would you do in the 20th century? I'm not very, expert about cinema, so I don't know. No, but anyway, it was a very difficult part, and I think you can see it in these images because, we were not here in the documentary field, as the story of Maki has been already told to me and to everyone. We knew each other so well, so we couldn't make as if we were doing it again because it was not possible. And so we tried something together, and for Nicolas and me it was very difficult because I hated 16 millimeter at that very moment, because I couldn't see what was happening with the camera. We were only 3 of us because Maki decided that there will be no sound engineer. So I became a sound engineer, I'm not a sound engineer. And so I took the sound, and so it's because he wanted that we stay as a family, and that which I could understand. So, but
he wouldn't give out his story to a stranger, but to us.
I know, at that moment. So it has its limits, but now Maki is quite proud of it, and it was difficult when we made it, and we were both a bit worried about these images and how we made them, because we had no lights, and it was rather. But that's it.
It was the first sequence that we shot, actually, almost, of the film, because the Maki and Natalie had written the story much earlier, when more in the project stage of making the film, and then there was waiting for the grant, and then there was the money, and when there was the money, we need to. The Maki had already written that almost a year before or 6 months before, and it was already becoming sort of a bit obsolete in some form. So said, okay, we have to start with this, even though it's going to be the most difficult part of the film. We have to start with this right away, and it was a bit tough because it's just the three of us and a bit tense, all of us, and yeah, trying to make something that we would be happy with.
But we decided when we edit the film to keep.
I think it's very powerful. I like it.
Yes, it's something I'm always struggling with that. For instance, it's not just like wow, we made it. No, but we thought that we got to just. It was part of our. And I was surprised because in festival and Maki had struggled with that part too, and in festival, and when he's talking about that, he's very. That's my story, and that's what I decided to do, and that's also I say okay, that's it.
I have a question, Mr. Ray. You said that this movie is a documentary. That's exactly the point I was thinking about. Do you really think it is a documentary?
Did I say that?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember saying
But
that.
maybe it's
anyways.
well, yeah, you said it, but maybe it was just
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
it was kind of a
No,
Nebensatz.
I don't think it's a documentary, but I think, you know, documentary and fiction, I think it's a bit old style. You know, it's like a very old map, I think.
Yeah.
I think we call it a poem documentaire, a documentary poem.
And yeah, but that's the job of film critics, to invent new categories, I think. Please.
Yeah,
That
but
fit
that's
the films that
exactly-
are made today, not the films that were made, you know, 100 years ago.
I think that's an interesting point of the film, or what I mean. For me, it was kind of. I was kind of disturbed when I watched the film because I didn't know who was talking, who wrote the text. Did he write the text in the? At the end, you said he wrote the text. What's his name again? Malik, right?
Maki.
Maki. I think, yeah, you could discuss about the. I mean, I don't want to find a genre. That's not what I want. I just want to kind of. I think it's interesting to talk about what kind of film is it. I mean, you said now it's a poem documentary.
But are you disturbed by the fact that there's a poetic or poetic dimension in this kind of subject film?
No, not at all. No. I just, the point of view. I didn't know the point of view. Who is looking at what?
Well, but that's because it's a blurred line. I mean, that's what's interesting about the film, because it's three people making a film together about one of them. It's not the ethnographic outsiders who just look at him and say, how interesting.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking about. Exactly this point. And now I'm getting kind of, that was my disturbance. So now I'm kind of putting the pieces together. I didn't know who was watching at what. First I thought there was the Western guy who wrote the text for Maki, and he was telling it. That's what I thought, because I didn't know. So I thought it was kind of, the hegemonial kind of sign of power, anything. But now I'm sorry for my English.
No, but Maki didn't write totally the text because it came from conversation we had that was transcribed, and then there was all this conversation, and then we picked some sentences he said and some important points in that text. But it's not he wrote the text, but the text comes from words he has said before. So it's like he's saying when he's talking about that, he said it was my inner text, but it became his inner text, and because it's also what I heard, it's working together. But I can understand what you are saying, because it could be, I was also sometime in that question because Maki hadn't made a film before, and I had some power, of course, possible power. He has a strong power, so it's no problem about that. He's rebelling all the time, and so it's not. So that's why.
Yeah, that's what I thought was interesting.
He was not the subject of
yeah.
something. He
Not the
always
object.
decided his own time, and sometimes I was more running after him. So
because I was kind of when I saw him in this group of people where he was talking in a very political situation. I don't know. That was a real documentary scene when he was. I don't know. Do you know what scene I mean? The scene when he was.
Yes, it was documentary because it was a journalist that was filming that part when he's saying if I came here, if I wanted to tell, you are talking about that part.
Yeah, and then I thought, oh, okay, he could very express himself very good in this situation.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah.
this
Yes.
kind of
we didn't make that together. Because we made that film with Maki, and during the struggle, he was one of the figure, and journalist. He was filmed a lot by journalists because he was able to take to what. It was one of them who took French better, so he was very afraid that we will make like journalists.
But this kind of putting together creation and documentary. So you created a documentary, and you documented a creation of a fictional work. So the films are very similar in being opposite. Perhaps you could tell something about if you thought about also about this documentary aspects of documenting a fictional work, or perhaps and also to create a new form from this act of putting together the both sides of creation and artwork.
Sure. I mean, I think Nicolas is right. I mean, we're kind of still using these 20th century words, and even 19th century terms like poetic or essayistic. I mean, it is essayistic in the sense that it's an essay sort of exploring a topic kind of freely. But these words are not sufficient to capture the things that are going on. Like, I like to think that there's something very performative about the video. I mean, the sense that there's someone navigating through the internet. I also like to think of it as like a demonstration video. If you're familiar with those YouTube videos that, how to use this software in like 5 minutes, or how to do this in 6 minutes. So this is basically how to learn as much as you can about transformers using 300 YouTube videos in 20 minutes. So it's very much kind of a sense of pedagogical demonstration of how to use the internet to try to find things or try to put things together. So, you know, I mean, and I don't know if documentaries are meant to be pedagogical, or just report things, or just express them very poetically, express an experience very poetically. But I think those questions are more interesting to me than what is it documentary or not? Documentary is just a shell. Yeah. But it's really about the sense of purpose, the sense of what is that expressive force, you know, that gives it the power that we really gravitate to.
Yes, and both of your films has this kind of aspect in it, that they are also documenting their own creation. So, like your film is like a making of a making of, and you also introduce yourself into the movie, and so we see Natalie making the film, and this is also a kind of a making of, and yeah, so